has a right to know where they came from. But what happens when that information is deliberately hidden? This is the story of how one small detail in a dusty hospital record unlocked a 70-year-old family secret and changed everything I thought I knew about my Uncle Gordon. My Uncle Gordon Stubbs never talked about his childhood. When anyone asked about his parents, he'd give the same rehearsed answer. They died in an accident. End of conversation. But here's what made his story strange. There was no birth certificate, no record of his birth at all. And instead of being adopted by a young couple, Gordon was raised by Martha, a 50-year-old widow with 11 adult children of her own, living in regional Victoria. Why would a woman in her 50s, who had already raised nearly a dozen children, take in an infant with no legal paperwork? There was just one problem. I had no experience in genealogy research, and every single person who might have known the truth, they were all dead. I started where any researcher would. Birth records, death certificates, newspaper archives. Nothing. Gordon's birth simply didn't exist in the official record. Weeks turned into months. Every lead was a dead end. Every Stubbs family I found had no connection to Gordon. I was about to give up when I decided to go back to square one. Martha, the foster mother. I pulled up Martha's electoral roll record, something I'd looked at a dozen times before. But this time I did something different. I turned the page, and there it was. A name. Maud Stubbs, living just streets away from Martha. Same neighbourhood. Could it be a coincidence? Maud Stubbs. It was a common name in that era. I found dozens of them in the records, but none seemed connected to Gordon or Martha. Still, something told me to keep digging. A week later, I walked into the Genealogical Society of Victoria. On a complete hunch, I typed Maud Stubbs into their catalogue search. One result. Just one. A patient record from the Queen's Memorial Infectious Diseases Hospital, now known as Fairfield Hospital, dated 1928. The dates lined up with Gordon's age. But here's what made my heart stop. The record showed that Maud Ellen Stubbs was a resident at the Carlton Refuge, a home for unmarried mothers, and she was there with her infant son. Both of them were suffering from diphtheria. I immediately tracked down the Carlton Refuge records at the State Library, and there, in those yellowed pages, was the whole story. Maud Ellen Stubbs gave birth to a son, but when diphtheria struck, she couldn't care for him. The baby needed a home, and who took him in? Martha Seavright. To most, she was just a name on a census, but to my Uncle Gordon, she was everything. She was his father's mother, the grandmother who raised him as her own to ensure he had a stable home. For years, we lived with the official version of the tragedy. We were told an accident claimed both his parents. In fact, his father did die in a car accident, but his mother, she died of TB. That one document didn't just solve a family mystery, it taught me how to be a researcher. It taught me that in genealogy, small connections matter. You have to turn every single page. You have to follow every hunch, no matter how faint. Someone's whole identity might be hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone who cares enough to look. Uncle Gordon never learned the truth before he passed away. There's a sadness in that, but there's also a victory. Because of that search, his descendants finally know their real story. They know exactly where they came from. And to me, that's worth every dead end, every frustrating week of silence, and every brittle page I had to turn. Thanks for watching. If Martha and Gordon's story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. And remember, your family's story is out there too. It's just waiting for you to discover it.